Hey everyone, and welcome to your first team session and the first video in this video series related to this session entitled Building Your Team and Consulting Humbly. My name's Andy Hughes and I'm one of your facilitators for this session. You get a chance to meet my co-facilitator Tori in just a bit in the next video. But what I want to do first is give you a high-level overview of what the session is about, what are our goals, and some of the things to expect, and really how to navigate this self-directed team assignment. Ideally, we would love to be in a live session with you all, but to be focused on your time and to prioritize your time, we wanted to make sure that you had access to some of the material. So I want to give you the best advice of how to get the most out of this experience in a self-directed format. But let me talk about the goals first. And so our first goal is ultimately to help you build relationships amongst your team. So you're going to be spending a decent amount of time together and working towards a common goal. There's some independent and interdependent work that needs to happen. You need to cultivate some of those relationships and get to know the folks in your group. So we're going to start some of that conversation today. Our second goal is also to deconstruct what does it mean to be a team and how do you go about building effective teams. And so we're going to run you through a case study or a simulation to experience that, but also give you some of the best research out there on what makes effective teams tick and how to work towards that. Our third goal is to debrief one of your assignments coming into these sessions. So I want to make sure you've had the chance to complete this. This is the Team Parker Player Survey, the Parker Team Player Survey. And this is something we're going to reflect on together so you have a better understanding of what does this mean for me as an individual and how can I use this, this tool to inform my approach to the team moving forward. It's also going to give you a good sense of what other people bring to the team, because all different styles are going to be important for teamwork. Our fourth goal is to talk a little bit about what does consulting mean and what does consulting with humility mean, and how can you go about entering into a helper relationship so that you can kick off the relationship with your community partner to the best of your ability. And we're going to give you some practical tools and tips to do that. So those are the goals for this session today. Just some words of advice and tips of success. This is something you have to do together. If one of your group members is missing, I'd encourage you to wait for them to actually come together and do this, because you're going to get the best out of the session based on that. Feel free to pause the video at any time. This is something you can keep coming back to, even if you need to meet again. I'd encourage you to identify a coordinating leader to facilitate each video and activity, since that's something we can't do live. That's something that could be identified through your group. And then also to find someone to capture some notes and insights so that you can record this information that you go through. If you have any issues throughout the session, just reach out to your coach or to me directly, and we'll be able to help guide you through it. But those are some tips for success there. But why does all this matter? Why are we taking time to inform your first session based on effective teamwork? Well, traditionally, when groups come together, they are faced with a problem or a need to address, right? And that problem is usually the goal that your group is working towards. And most of the time, when we come together in a group, think about the teams and the groups you've been a part of. What do? We go first to, okay, what is the problem and how do we fix it? What we're going to suggest is that some of the most effective teams certainly pay attention to what the goal or the problem is that you're working towards. But more importantly, they're focused on the second problem, which is how will this group work together to accomplish our goal? And oftentimes, this is a more complex problem because you have lots of different perspectives, lots of different ideas, there's power relationships, there's different experiences with groups, there's culture, there's individual styles and preferences. All of this makes a complex, challenging problem for any team to solve. And most of the time, we don't talk about this stuff. And I'll be honest, I think teams and groups can be successful without addressing problem number 2. But what we want to do is teach you some of the ways to bring out these conversations so that when you go off in the world and create great work, you're actually going to be able to use some of these tools and these resources to be able to create effective teams in your organization. The other thing I want to talk a little bit about is every group experience is different. But what we do know is there's typical stages of norming that happens amongst groups. And you're going to experience this in some degree. But the reason why we wanted to spend some time building your team is so that you can think about how do you advance in these stages more fluidly and more effectively, because ultimately you want to be able to perform with your team on your working with your community partner. So the typical stages that a group goes through is forming, storming, norming, and performing. And forming is what we're doing right now. We're getting to know each other. We're trying to get a sense of who is each other, what do we have to bring to the table. At some point, we're going to go through a storm. And this is when there's conflict or some kind of challenge or problem that the group faces. And this is not a bad thing. This is necessary for groups to be able to perform, because what storming does is test out some of our assumptions and the way we think about the group work. The next is norming. So once we've figured out, okay, who is everyone, what do they have to bring to the table, and what does it mean to engage in some conflict, we're going to start to build some norms that enable this group to succeed, and that will lead to performing. So those are a couple of reasons why this work is important, and we encourage you to leave these sessions having a better sense of what does it mean to be a part of an effective team. So that's a quick overview of what we're trying to do in this session. This will be the end of this first video. Now I'd encourage you to go over to the second video, which is where Tori is going to walk you through some team building exercises. Thanks, and I'll see you later.